Welcome to Outrage Overload, a science podcast about outrage and lowering the temperature. This is episode 62. Algorithms, misinformation, echo chambers. We've heard these words thrown around a lot, but do we really understand how they shape what we see and what we believe? Can algorithms be designed to bridge divides instead of deepening them? That's what we're going to talk about on this episode of the Outrage Overload podcast. I'm your host, David Beckmeyer, and if you're new here, I'm so glad you found us. This show is all about cutting through the noise of outrage media and exploring what's really driving our divided world. And if you've been with us for a while, welcome back. Your support, your curiosity, and your willingness to challenge your own assumptions is what makes this community special. Now, today's episode is part of our effort to mix things up, diversify our conversations, and lean more into tech-focused topics. We're diving into a question that's right at the intersection of technology and polarization. How do algorithms influence what we see? And could they actually be part of the solution instead of the problem? My guest today is someone who spent years studying these questions.
I'm Paul Resnick. I'm a professor at the University of Michigan School of Information. I am the director of our Center for Social Media Responsibility there. My research background is a computer scientist who sort of drifted into the social sciences, psychology and political science and economics. And now I sort of describe myself as a computational social scientist. I did some of the early work on recommender and reputation systems back in the 1990s. And, recently I've had a continuing interest in ways that information from other people can guide us. Whether it helps us find books and movies that we'll like, or whether it can be used for sort of community moderation of our online spaces, or I'm an avid consumer of reviews about restaurants and hotels before I go to them. I think a running theme for me has been, how can the information from other people and their experiences be used in a useful way to guide what we do?
Paul Resnick is a professor at the University of Michigan, director of the Center for Social Media Responsibility, and a pioneer in recommender and reputation systems. His work explores how digital platforms influence our choices, from what news we consume to how online spaces are moderated. In this conversation, we're unpacking everything from early fears of filter bubbles to new efforts like Community Notes on X that attempt to crowdsource fact-checking across ideological lines. It's a very interesting system, and we will cover the details of how it functions. So whether you're a tech geek, a media skeptic, or just someone trying to make sense of our digital world, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Paul Resnick, thank you so much for making time for our program.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I love your theme.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I found this paper, and I think we talked a little bit before about that. I'm trying to bring in. I have a tech background, so I'm trying to bring in a little bit more of that into the show. And there's a lot of overlap, like the work that you're doing too. So that's kind of what brought me to some of your work, and I was thrilled to have you agree to come on our program. So it's great to be able to talk to you. I wanted to start off a little bit on your prior work, which is around these news aggregators, or these news recommenders and things like that. And one of the things was talking about bringing in diverse perspectives. And diverse perspectives is something we talk about a lot on this show. So maybe we, as just kind of a general kick it off, could you describe a little bit some of the main challenges and successes you encountered with that project and kind of how it shaped your thinking about media and polarization?
Yeah, so this is work that I did with several doctoral students 10, 12 years ago. And kind of the context at the time is that there was, a lot of concern about echo chambers or filter bubbles. I think in that era, maybe a little bit later, Eli Pariser came out with his Filter Bubbles book. And so the idea of that is, oh no, all of this stuff online, this was a more optimistic time about the online space is, oh, it's so great. People can get exactly what they want, and you can get the Daily Me. You'll get just the news that's perfect for you. And then people were started to say, oh no, if people get just what's perfect for them, maybe that's going to be only things that tell them what they already think, reinforce their views, and we're going to have the Democrats only hearing things from other Democrats and Republicans only hearing things from other Republicans. And, I think over the past decade, a lot of the growing polarization and other problems that have happened, people have wanted to attribute to, oh, it must be because of echo chambers and filter bubbles. I think a lot of the academic research in the intervening time has sort of said, that's not really what's happening. It's not that people are not encountering anything that's contrary to their current viewpoints. It's that they are, encountering it and rejecting it and becoming tribal about reflexively rejecting it. So, I'm not quite sure I would frame everything now exactly as I did then, but that was the impetus of, okay, well, what might we make? Could we devise some algorithms that would show people things that would be a mixture, that wouldn't just be the things that reinforce your own point of view, and we also tried to think about could we do this in a way that people would be happy, like that it's not sort of your civic broccoli. I should be the kind of person who occasionally pays attention to some viewpoints from other perspectives. I hate it when I do, but I should, and so I'm going to use this news aggregator that's going to give me some stuff from the left and some stuff from the right. We didn't want to be in that world. We wanted to be in a world where people were voluntarily using this and saying, yeah, actually, I'm the 10% of stuff that I'm getting from the right-wing sources is more interesting than the 90% of stuff that I'm getting from the left. That was the even though I'm more on the left. So that's what we were trying to aim for. Is there a way that you could make a news feed for people that would give them stuff that challenged their viewpoints, but they were glad to get it?
So in today's landscape, a lot of the content we're seeing now is being driven by algorithms, and I know you're doing some work with Community Notes. So tell us a little bit about what Community Notes is and the work you're doing with it. And I will say that in my sort of unscientific research on this, a lot of people don't even know Community Notes exists.
Right. So, at the risk of, I want to try to be very clear about things that I'm looking at versus things that I've, had any part in. And,
right.
And so we have created a site that we call Community Notes Monitor, which is looking at Community Notes and letting you, the public, look at Community Notes, but we are not the creators of Community Notes. So let me first, explain a little bit about what Community Notes is. It's a project at X, formerly Twitter. It actually predates the Musk purchase, but it's one of the few parts of their trust and integrity processes that he seemed to like, and he kept it around. It is a communal process of responding to misinformation on X. So users of X can sign up to be Community Notes contributors. And if you sign up to be a contributor to this, when you see a post that you think is misleading, you can write a note. and propose that this note be attached. So if you're somebody who does use X, you've probably at least once in a while seen a post where there's a post, and then right below it, it says readers added context. And then there'll be a little note that somebody else wrote. So those are not written by staff at X or employees or contractors. They're written by just regular users. And then there's an approval process. And it's actually this approval process that really, intrigued me and has made me want to study it, is that it is not purely a majority vote. They present this proposed note to other people and other community notes members, and they say, yes, I think this is helpful. No, this is a bad note. And then there's a vote counting process. But the heuristic behind the vote counting process is that the note has to be upvoted by people who don't usually agree with each other. That's when they decide, oh, this must be a good quality note. So they actually are profiling everybody who votes on these notes. They look at their history of their past votes, and they assign everybody 2 scores. Each voter has a polarity score, which is basically, do you seem to like the Democratic posts or the Republican posts? For international ones, the dimensions of the polls may be a little different, but in the US, the polarity seems to be basically political. And they infer that from your past votes, not anything nothing about what you've tweeted or anything else. It's just from your past votes, you seem to be upvoting certain kinds of notes. And they also assess another parameter, which is your friendliness. Do you just tend to upvote everything, or are you a negative person who downvotes everything? And then they try to predict all the future votes. So if you take a note and we have 100 votes on it, for each of those votes, can we predict what the votes will be just by knowing those users' polarity and friendliness and some parameter that we're inferring about the note? So we also infer that, oh, this note is more a Republican or a Democratic note. And if we can predict everything about the votes by just saying, oh, this is a more Republican note, and we know the polarity of the voters, if that's enough to tell us what everybody's votes are, then we don't need to, then there's no surprise in the votes, and we don't attach the note. The only time the note gets attached, basically, is if it gets upvoted by some Republicans and some Democrats. And so I'm intrigued as a computer scientist by this algorithm. What are the conditions under which it would work? But I'm also intrigued, as an observer of social systems. It's, wow, this seems like one of the few things out on the internet that's creating an incentive for people to be centrist rather than extremist. Because if I'm writing a note and I want to get people to approve it, I have to write it in a non-incendiary way, in a less partisan way. If I write my note, even if it's got good facts in it, if I write it in a way that insults all the Republicans, they're not going to upvote it. And so, I really like that element of this, that it's creating an incentive for people to not be incendiary, to try to find common ground.
And so are those heuristics like transparent? Are they public, or is it all a black box?
So they're extraordinarily open about this Community Notes project. Not the rest of X, but Community Notes. The code that they run to run the algorithm, they've put out on GitHub, and I and other researchers have been free to just download it. And once a day, they give a data dump of all the notes and all the votes. And so again, and that's made it possible for me to create this Community Notes Monitor site that and we can talk about what's there. So they do try to be transparent to ordinary users about what's happened. I think they were very careful about trying to choose the wording of readers added context rather than some other wording like, this post is wrong or something like that. And they do.
I like that. I like that framing a lot. Yeah. If
you go to their website, and I think they have links that could take you, if you wanted more information, it would take you to the community notes page. One of the very first things it says on the page is it's not majority vote, and they have some wording. I don't think they quite use how I'm describing it as people who don't usually agree, but they are trying to convey that heuristic, that this is how it works, and if you believe us that this is how it works, whether people are getting that message, I don't know, but I think they're trying to convey that yes, you need to attract a bipartisan audience if you want to get your notes attached.
So when you looked at it, I mean, do you think the algorithm is pretty reasonable about that approach?
Yeah, so I mean, I think their implementation of the algorithm is definitely reasonable. I'm looking forward to spending more time kind of poking and seeing where maybe is it getting outcomes that I would think are not quite what they're after, and see, can you trace that to I mean, you can imagine all kinds of things that happen when you demand bipartisanship. Right? You can have the nice feature that I've tried to describe of, well, people are going to be less incendiary in how they phrase their notes, but you also could have just that you can never get agreement about anything that has any political consequences. And so that's the kind of thing I want to look for and see if, are the things where notes are proposed and that they don't get attached exactly the things where notes are needed, or is that not the problem? And that's an empirical question that's an interaction of the algorithm with the behavior of the people and how many of which kind of people choose to sign up to be part of community notes.
Yeah, I saw that X or Twitter had reported something like 500,000 people had signed up to be community notes contributors. I don't know if they reported exactly how many are active and stuff like that, but.
Well, again, that's the kind of thing that we can report from the data. It seems that, in a typical day, there's somewhere between 200 and 300 posts that get a note attached. There's about 10 times that many posts that get notes proposed, but they don't get attached. And so, that gives you some sense of the scale. I think the fact that there's so many where the notes get proposed but not approved suggests to me that they, you have to go through and see if you agree that they shouldn't have been attached. But the ones that were kind of most controversial were getting the most conversation. I looked at them and was like, yeah, that was just somebody's opinion, and it wasn't really something that you could say was wrong. Or so if it's true that the community's voting in a reasonable way, and the fact that there's only a couple hundred that are getting approved, whereas many 10 times that are not getting approved, that kind of suggests to me that they're getting a reasonable coverage. Right? One of the things I would worry about, so I'll tell you, like, the three things I would worry about if I'm trying to evaluate how well is the system working is, one is coverage. Are they just missing most of the misinformation tweets? Second would be timing. Does it take 2 days before a note gets approved and all of the attention that's going to happen has already happened? And the third would be strategic manipulation. Can I get together with 5 of my buddies and pretend to be have a different polarity than I really do, and then use that to to get the stuff that to tank the notes on things that really should get notes. So those are I think are the challenges, and it's an empirical question. We have to look at it and see.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I definitely want to talk about that a little more, because that's a whole nother aspect of the transparency of how difficult is it anymore to look at the behavior of Twitter users, right, or X users. But I want to think about this idea of what gets approved, right? What it would take to get approved, right? It seems like there's two major things I think of as kind of, metrics or vectors that would matter. Would be, in order to get somebody that would normally disagree, one would be kind of something you mentioned, which is kind of more of a contempt versus dignity side, right? I mean, obviously, he's a lot of contemptuous language. That's not going to probably get approved by it's not going to have any crossover. And the other would be, you use the word centrist, and on my show sometimes, for my audience, and you probably hear this too, that sometimes they consider centrism like a kind of a bad word, like we're somehow telling everybody to kind of take these mushy middle positions, and we're not really saying that. But there is, to me, an aspect of like this integrated values of some sort, right? You'd have to find some at least shared values, something that would not necessarily seem super, in terms of a partisanship thing. It seems like those are a couple of the biggies. And as you said, so where does that take things? So does community notes drive everybody to like a mushy middle with, sort of thing? And I don't know if it sounds like you've had some thoughts on that, but I don't know if you would agree with some of that or say, no, you've got it all wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge in all kinds of like crossover bridging work. Do you get the mushy least common denominator milquetoast thing that's uninteresting, and or can you get the amazing fusion flavor? And I've been to restaurants where I look at the menu and I say, wow, I would have never thought that those ingredients go together. And I order it and I eat it and I say, yeah, those ingredients don't go together. So, but sometimes they do. And so we want we'd like something that doesn't erase all difference in order to find commonality. And I'm not sure that the community note is the place where we're quite going to find it, because it has to be so short. But I think Wikipedia pages may be a better place to look for those, because they're long enough that you can have something that instead of erasing disagreements and differences, that sort of summarize them. And here's what the argument is on this side, and here's what the argument is that's counter to it, and you don't have to necessarily resolve it, but everybody feels heard, and it can be quite productive to get those kind of summaries. And so I think that may be one of the ways that the centrism is not just least common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually pulling out the pearls of wisdom from both sides. Right.
Yeah. And so have there been any surprises, or are you seeing any trends, so far in this work? And do any of these insights, inform efforts to maybe change algorithms prospectively?
I'd say, the first insight is just that, yes, you can instantiate that idea and do of approved by people who don't always agree with each other, and you can do it in a way that is computable and not trivially manipulatable. I don't yet have a claim that it's impossible to manipulate. It isn't impossible to manipulate, but it's not trivial, and we can do it in an automated way that doesn't require anybody at X to have predetermined this is left and this is right, or everything is emerging just from people's behavior in the algorithm. So I think the fact that it's sort of a proof of concept that it's possible to do that makes me think, yeah, we should try this in some other places. We should go look for ways that other places where we can identify quality things by finding that they have strange bedfellows in who's supporting it, and that we should be looking for that as positive signals when we do find things that create unusual alliances. Those probably deserve a lot more attention from society at large.
So is there a movement to do that? Is there a movement to, is Community Notes kind of an open AI, and theoretically Facebook and others and Instagram and others could bolt it onto their system as well?
Yeah. There's two elements of that. One is as an approach to combating misinformation or other policy violations on a site. So trying to use it as a moderation tool. And in that realm, I think YouTube has announced some version of that's somehow inspired by this. I don't really know the details, and they're not nearly as open about what they're doing, so they won't get as much academic study. I keep trying to talk up with anybody I meet from the big tech companies of, shouldn't we be trying this with the main feed? Maybe you could have like the most awesome Instagram feed or the most awesome X feed, that if you instantiated a version of this algorithm. And of course, they don't always say all the things they're doing. So,
right.
But I haven't yet seen it. I'm kind of tempted to try to implement it myself on Blue Sky, because in principle you should be able to do that. I'm not sure how much compute power you would need to do it on the scale that would be required. But I might try to. I'm on sabbatical this year. I get to just try projects. So because my hunch is that you're actually going to get a really high quality feed this way if you got the public affairs stuff that had unusual alliances of people who liked it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's such an open. It just seems like such an opportunity there. Like that's what we all need more of, because even though, like you said, I mean, everybody, it kind of looks for the magic, the one thing we could fix. And for a while it was filter bubbles and this kind of stuff, right? And there's generally nothing like that. But all those things kind of play into this in their own way. So something like this, I think, has a lot of opportunity to make a difference, where we're exposed to more sort of rational arguments that are different from our normal perspective, not just the sort of more extreme ones that we typically see that are kind of relatively easy to dismiss. So you talked a little bit about some of the potential risks and unintended consequences of tools like Community Notes, and you've looked at these kinds of things for a long time, and just generally how technology shapes our media consumption. What roles, you've talked about a little bit, but is there anything else you can add to what roles do you see algorithms, sort of playing, specifically related to political polarization, moving forward?
Well, let's just say the algorithms have gotten very good at giving us things that we respond to, things that we spend more time on, things that we reply to, things that we share with our friends. It gives us things that we respond to, because we have these algorithms that can try to understand what are the things. We have a whole history of the things that you reacted to and that you didn't, and we can try to figure out what the characteristics are and give you more of those. So what we've definitely found is that one of those characteristics is things that make you outraged. And since that's something that people respond to, the algorithms are giving us more of it. Some people want to respond by saying, well, let's, stop the algorithms, stop giving people more of the stuff that they seem to respond to. That seems like a losing proposition, because in some sense that is the stuff people liked, right? They chose to spend their time on it. So I think what we have to do is accept that, yes, the outrageous stuff is engaging, the stuff that makes our blood boil engages us, but that might not be the only thing that engages us. What I'm hoping is that there are these pockets of things that people will find very engaging, but that we're not doing a good job of surfacing yet, and which will have, much more beneficial effects. So if you give me a random, a random collection of things from people who are pushing a political agenda that I don't agree with, I'm not going to like those. I might, maybe I'm going to react to them because I'm outraged by them. But if you had an algorithm that could identify what are the pearls of wisdom that they have, what are the things that they're seeing that I don't see, I think some of those things are things that also would engage with, and not in quite so negative a way. So that's the hope, is that that because we haven't done well enough at identifying the really good stuff that isn't stuff I already agree with, that therefore we think people don't want stuff they don't agree with. But I think they just want the really good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Any other sort of final thoughts of hope for us, or anything along those lines?
It comes back to the civic broccoli idea, and
yeah,
actually I like broccoli, but in moderation. And so can we make connecting and bridging across these ideological differences, can we make that be ice cream instead of broccoli? And I assume that you've had this experience. I've had many experiences where you do make a connection that's kind of unexpected, and it's memorable and it's very rewarding, and people do like, at least some people do like it when it happens. It's hard, and so, but it's not like it's going to have. It doesn't have to be that it's this unpleasant thing that we do because it's good for us. It's we can do things, and you talked about making games. We can make games, and it can be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's great. I really appreciate, again, Dr. Resnick, you making time for our program, and I enjoyed speaking with you.
Great, thank you.
And that is it for this episode of the Outrage Overload podcast. For links to everything we talked about on this episode, go to outrageoverload.net. If you enjoyed this episode, if you found it interesting, please tell some friends about it. Post it to your social media. Better yet, text someone. Even better, talk to someone in real life. Tell them about this show. I really appreciate it. Okay, see you in a week or two.